Hello everybody. Welcome back to day 64. Well, not welcome back, just welcome to day 64 and welcome back to 100 days of code with me, Lilly Code. We are continuing on with our 100 days of code challenge and let's just get into it. So we're building out our meal ordering application and we are setting different views to be shown. Here we can see depending on whether or not our cart is currently our order. So we've placed all the items that we want in our cart. We have different things available. They sound delicious. So we have some sushi, some schnitzel, a barbecue burger and a green bowl. So when we add these items to the cart, we want different actions to happen once we go through the checkout process. So that's what we're currently setting up. So we have three different views here. We have, are we currently submitting? If we're currently submitting the order, then we want to show the user that we are sending the order data. If we are submitted, we want to say, yep, grand, your order's on its way. This is all communicating with a Firebase backend. So it's great. We're doing API calls. We're building out a React application. It's going swimmingly. So get on your trunks or your bikini if you're a girl, or your one piece, or your however you like to go swimming. Get in there in all your gear, however you like to go swimming. So come on, jump on board. Oh, we're going swimming. Yeah, it's going swimmingly. And then oh Lord. So then we also have this cart modal content. So what this is this is what we want to show in the instance that we're ready to submit our order and everything else is okay. So this is shown conditionally. Let me just follow this down and tell you exactly what's going on because I can't really remember. But what this is it's our total amount and then our submit order handler. So once everything is in place, once we have a few items, we will display the total amount and we have the button that you can then continue on and buy your food, and we can also cancel it as well. Yeah, so we show the checkout component. Yeah, so just let me see where this is being. Okay, yes. So if we're not submitting and if we haven't submitted yet, then we show the cart modal content. I didn't spell that correctly, which could cause issues later on, so let's just spell it right for tonight or any other day. Oh, so let's continue on. So now once we are not currently submitting and our order isn't going through the process of either submitting or completed, we will show the button with the total amount. We'll show the total amount. It's in a span, it's not a button. Here's the total amount, and then we are also using a JSX statement to send out that calculated total amount, which we've just fixed it to 2 different decimal places. So let's go have a quick look at this. This is all good, just getting back to grips with where we're at and explaining this information out so nobody is lost. But if you follow on every day and you just keep watching, you're probably like, yeah, I know, I watched yesterday. And if anybody is watching these videos or whoever is watching them, like, just my sincerest thank you, guys. Like, it's just great, I'm learning so much, and to think if anybody's watching them, I'm doing it for me and for you to learn. But yeah, it's just wonderful, and I just thank you so much. So let's move on. Okay, so let's continue building out our component here. So what we're going to do is come to the component did submit. So we're in our cart, yeah, and we have our did submit modal content. Yes, so we're going to flesh this out a little bit here now, and in order to do that, we need, when we're using React, to keep everything in one top level div. So we want to add more than just a paragraph here. So I'm going to add a fragment so we can do just that. So fragment is going to be our top level div, and then I'll move my paragraph in here. Great, and then our error's gone away, and let's continue. Cool. So we have successfully sent the order. What else do we want? We want a div in here, so I'll add my div. We want a button in here, so I'll add my button, and then I'm going to flesh these out in just un momento, por favor, mi amigos. So yeah, we'll flesh this out as well, and then this should all be wrapped in a div. Is that correct? Where's that closing div coming from there? Aha, this div is actually closing down here. So cool. And then we will tab this in, because that's what I mean by a top level component here. So, and also I'm going to change this to 4, but then it doesn't automatically just do it for me. So that's format on save, prettier. JavaScript. Oh, sweet. Sweet jelly beans. And it still didn't just automatically do it though. Okay, look, we're not going to worry about that. It's indented fine. We can still see what's going on. So here I have my did submit modal content, which is being, this is the view that's being shown on the screen if we did submit. So let's flesh this out. So we have a div here, and this div is just going to have a class name just to give this some style. So the class name is going to be styles.actions. And the actions is because we have buttons. We have some actions happening in here. So we're using the actions class where we have buttons, which makes sense. So hopefully I explained that okay. We're actually performing an action, a button click action. So therefore we've given the parent div the class of actions to style all of these actions or our buttons. And then in here we will say class name. We want another class name. And this is equal to classes. And because we want to pass in a hyphenated class name here, we added in the square brackets and we pass it in like this. So we'll say button hyphen alt. So the alternative button is this button. And we also want to add an on-click function to this button. So on clickaroo, say how do you do? So we'll open up our curly parentheses here, and in here we'll say props on close. So this means that this particular on close function is going to be passed in from outside of the component. That's where you get these props from. The props are what come into the component like a function. The component is just a function. So here we are passing something in when we call this function, when we use it. So wherever we use the caret here, we'll be expecting to have this on close function passed in, and we'll see that now in a moment. So there you go. Look, here's an example of it. So this is the checkout component, and we can see on the checkout component we've passed down the props of on cancel, and that's what's going on there. So if we go to our checkout, we will be looking for the props on cancel. But we'll continue on with what we're doing. I'm just trying to explain as I go here, and hopefully it's valuable and you are picking up what's going on. And if not, guys, just keep watching, because it just takes time for this stuff to become more and more apparent. But the terminology, you know, just watching someone code, even obviously it's good to practice yourself, but I think even for brand new beginners or people that are, you know, under 2 years in the game, or really it depends on how often you're studying as well. Like I say, under 2 years in the game with pretty regular studying, but nonetheless just hearing the terminology is good. So let's continue. Cool. So let's check this out. Okay, so it's telling us styles is not defined, and that's because we must have imported our cart module.css file. Like, surely I want this to be, like, I just see now that the icon for just this file has changed. Oh my god, did it do the tab? Looks like it. Didn't though, no. Oh, on new tabs. On new tabs is it doing it now? So let's see. Yeah. Okay, so on new tabs it's doing it. That's confusing. I think I need to add auto format on save, so we can do that actually, because that's a helpful thing to do. So if we just come up here to file, preferences, settings, and then in here we can search for format on save, and this will work because and we want to just do the whole project. Okay, so the file. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's just keep going. So yeah, you can turn on format on save, and this will format the file when you save it. So okay, format on type, why not? Yeah, let's format on type as well. So now if we continue, we have our close button here, and let's check out, oh yeah, so we have this styles which is giving us an error. So if we come back up, the reason is because we have actually imported our cart module.css file, all the classes in here which we access with just the dot notation and the name that we imported it with. We can see here cart module.css, where all of our styles are kept, is actually imported with the tag name classes, not styles. So if we replace styles with classes, we'll be doing better. So now we shouldn't have this error, cannot find styles, because we've used the correct word. And so it is. So here we go. This is massive, isn't it? Pretty big. Yeah, that'll do, I think. So let's add something to the cart. We can see our animation going there. Let's open up the cart. Great, we've got a sushi, we've got a schnitzel. We're doing well for ourselves. Sounds like a nice little piece of dinner. And then if I zoom out for a moment just to get this at the real size so we can actually see the screen, we do need to organize our scroll bars. So let's have a whirl here. We'll add our name, Lilly code, street, my street. You're welcome on my street. Our postcode needs to be 5 length, a 5 length string. That's the only requirements we have at the moment. City, sure you all know I'm from Ireland, even though that's not a city, but that'll do. And let's confirm. Ooh, successfully sent the order. So we can see an error here. We have a semicolon that clearly should not be there, and our close button works. That is super. So there's the semicolon that shouldn't be there anymore. And now if we save, let's have another spin of that. Let's add an item to our cart. I will zoom in because a little bit bigger for you guys. We have our sushi, we have our schnitzel. Let's order Lilly code, my street, postcode, city. That'll do. And then woohoo. So now we've got rid of that semicolon that was hanging around, and we can close that dialogue, and our food is on the way. This is making me hungry. So cool. And let's continue. See what else is on the cards. Cool. So we're going to add another action to our cart provider. So in our cart provider, which is in our store down here, because this is storing the state of our component, we have a reducer function which is doing different functions, running different functions for us depending on the action.type. That's how the reducer works. So you can say different actions that you want to be performed whilst also keeping track of the state. So that's when this can be helpful. And we have an add, we have a remove, and we're going to want to add an if clear. So we don't just want to add and remove items to the cart, we also want to be able to clear the cart. So action.type is equal to clear, and then let's open up our parentheses here and let's continue. So we'll return a new state. Cool. So yeah, so now all we want to do is return our default cart state, because our default cart state is return. If we go up here and So in here we need it like this. Yes, I had an extra pair of curly parentheses. So if we go and have a look at our default cart state, we can just see that all that's doing is clearing the cart. We start off with items, an empty array of items, so we don't have any items stored in this array yet, and our total amount is set to nil, zilch, nada, nothing. So, so therefore, when we come down into our reducer function that's performing different actions depending on what action.type we pass in, we are returning our default cart state. So realistically, if we just called the reducer and didn't pass it an action.type or pass an action.type of neither of these, it would come out here. But just to add this in, it's a bit more explicit. We can follow along what's happening. So we are resetting the cart if we pass it the type clear. And we also want to make sure this can be dispatched. So we need to add a function in order to do that. So we'll say const clear cart handler. So handler, clear the cart, handle that action. You know what's going on, cause looking at some fractions. No, we're not. So in here we have our clear cart handler. And what we're going to do in here is just dispatch that action that we just created. And the action that we want to dispatch is of type clear. So bada bing, bada boom. And we don't need any more information because we're not performing any other actions. Whereas in some of the other ones, we needed the item to be passed through because we were actually adding that item to the cart. Or in the case of the remove, which is this one here. Or in the case of the remove, we needed to pass through the ID, so we knew which one we were trying to remove. But in the clear, all we're doing is just resetting everything to nada. So that's perfect. And we'll also just add this to our create context cart context here. So we will say clear cart. And this is just going to be a function. That's all. Nothing special. We don't need to pass anything in. We've got it going on. And also in here, yes, we must add it to our cart context here. So we'll add it as well. So we'll say clear cart. And this is going to be linked up to the clear cart handler. So great. So we're just hooking everything up here now. So here's our cart context that we're defining here. These are what we're passing through when we use it in the provider, and then in the cart context itself we have that defined, what we're actually linking it up to in the provider, and then where we're getting those items from in the provider as well. So now in our cart.js, we can link all this together and we can actually use our clear cart handler. So when we submit our order, we'll use this. So we'll say cart context. Perfect. And what we want to do with our cart context is just call our clear cart. And this will empty the cart when we're finished now. So let's try that again and see if we do indeed get our items changed to 0 or an empty array, and our amount changed back to 0 once we have finished ordering. So let's add a schnitzel, feel like a green bowl today, and let's go into our card here and click order, fill out our information. So, you know, when you're normally ordering something, this would be the process, and you see that that only shows once we actually have some items in the cart, otherwise we do not see this. So what we'll do is just add everything in. I'll move this up. We really need to handle how that's falling off the page there, and then if I close, so our order's been sent, we close this dialog and we can see our cart has been set back to nothing once we've successfully ordered our food. So great, super duper. Okay, so we have our cart items being added here, and we can also send our orders now. So that's great. We're getting on very well. Lovely. Great. Cool, so now we're going to do a deeper dive into React. So great, let's do that. Let's dive deep. Get your swim togs back on, guys. We're going swimming again. Okay. So now we're going to look at Redux and what Redux is. What is Redux? Why will we use it? And then we will explore why we want to use it and learn about it and see how we can integrate it into our own React project. And we're going to use Redux Toolkit as well, which simplifies working with Redux, and we'll see that in un momento. So great. So what is Redux? Redux is a state management system for cross-component or app-wide state management. So like the use state, use context, Redux is another way of managing the state within your applications. And they all have their place, I'm sure. We'll be given the specific example of why we would use Redux. But we know in order to use state, this is for compartmentalized component state management. So you're managing the state of something within a particular component. Use context can then be used if you want to track the state of something in a wider area. So, across the whole state, if you need to perhaps track the state of your cart, for example, which needs to be accessed from many different components, you can use context for this. And then we also have Redux. So we'll find out in what circumstances is Redux helpful. So we can use it for a cross-component or app-wide state. So it doesn't say within component state, which leads me to believe that for that we should just use state. useREDUCER and use state. Yeah. Yeah. So generally we would use state or useREDUCER where we want to track the state of something within the component, and then say for example on a button click we want to update the state and cause a UI change. So that's sort of how we can use state and useREDUCER. Yeah, so local state is state that belongs to a single component. For example, listening to an input field and then toggling perhaps a show more details field on that input field. So that's use state. We discussed that. We can use state or useREDUCER if it's slightly more complex. Then we can also have cross-component state, which is a state that would affect multiple components. For example, if we were to open or close a modal or like a pop-up like this cart here, this is affecting many different components because it's popping up over all the components there. So we can use prop chains or prop drilling, so pass our props around in order to use cross-component state with useREDUCER. Or just with the props. And then sometimes we have app-wide state. For example, for user authentication, that word, I say it wrong, it'd be like authentication, authentication, user authentication. So when you're checking that a user is indeed a user, or you're logging them into a system, again, we can use prop chains or prop drilling. But perhaps this is a good moment to use context, because use context is for component wide and behind the scenes state storage. So that's when we use context. And Redux solves the same problem. So we can use cross component states or app-wide state management. So not for the local state. For the local state we use useState or useREDUCER, but when we're going a bit wider and we need the state to be managed across different components or across the entire app, we can use Redux. Bing! Yes. Sometimes you just need a stretch, guys. Make sure to do it yourself, you know. If you're sitting at your desk watching me, move a little bit. Get in some movement, like look around a bit. You know, we need it. I'll actually look out the window now after this video and just like focus. If I sit in at my computer for a long time, I stick my head out the window and I look at something 2 meters away and look at it for 20 seconds. Then I look at something 20 meters away and focus my eyes on that for 20 seconds. So for example, out my window, I'd look at something in my back garden and just keep my eyes there, which is more than 2 meters. That's probably 5 meters, 6 meters. But I'll just look at something in my back garden and let my eyes refocus. Then I'll look at perhaps the next house's back garden or the next house's roof or a bird on the roof and just keep my focus there for 20 seconds. And then I'd look at the furthest thing I can see, so the furthest tree, and allow my focus to rest there for 20 seconds. And you'd be really surprised if you sit and work at a computer all day long, if you try and do this. I've heard about this ages ago and I try and build them into my day. It just helps, you know, your body remain functional, and not just for today but going ahead for the rest of my lives. I want these little peckers to remain intact because I need to constantly look at things. So do this and you'd be very surprised, if you're a coder, if you're sitting at your desk for a long time, if you just try and look at the furthest point, so the furthest tree, your eyes are so blurry, like you can't even see it because your eyes are so in tune to a screen that's, you know, just about a hand's distance away. That's an ergonomically good place to have your screen a hand's distance. Mine is even further, I can't reach it, but it's quite big, so that's okay. But yes, build these things into your day, guys. You know, there's always times where you need a bit of movement, you need a little break, and build in conscious things that are going to help you perform your day-to-day activities better, and that will help for longevity of these day-to-day activities. I just think it's really important. So, you know, and I don't remember every day or every time, probably once a week, but isn't once a week better than never? And just constantly looking at the screen and never realising my eyes do actually need that break. Your eyes need a break, your body needs a break. So whenever you think about it, get up and do a little break. I've shown you my brain yoga squats before. I should do a video on all the little things that I build into my day, that I try and build into my day, that do assist me in maintaining focus and performing at my best throughout the whole day. So I'll do a video on that. I'll take note and continuing to watch the video here now because I paused it for a second when I start going on about 20 meters or whatever. Okay, so if we're going to use context in order to manage the app-wide state, it's a very, very good approach. But sometimes if you have a really big application, then you need to nest all of these different content providers inside each other to get them to all communicate with each other. So this can cause just a very nested JSX statement. So therefore, this is where... What are we looking at? What's the name of this thing? He doesn't have it on the screen, but this is where the thing that I'm talking about can come in useful. Instead of using use context, I just keep getting the word react, but that's not the word, so I'll tell you now in a moment. Redux, sorry, Redux. So Max is just explaining things here, and in the past I was skipping these and just going to come back and look at them myself. But for moving forward, at least I can properly explain this now when we are starting to build it out and have an idea of what's going on. So I will listen. I'll just pause the video for a second. Okay, so now we know what Redux is. It's basically just a alternative to use context, and so some of the key points now that are on the slide here is for complex setup or management. In more complex applications, React context can lead to these deeply nested JSX code because we have to keep putting the providers within each other so everything is provided by that provider. And then the performance won't be optimized because if there's a lot of high frequency changes. So this is a good place where we can use Redux to solve these problems. If we have lots of things that need app-wide state management and they're being updated at a high frequency, Redux can step in and save the day, and Lois Lane is going to be delighted flying through the clouds with Superman. So that's why we would use this. So how does Redux work? You have one central data store in your application. So there's just one store. And this manages the state of the entire application. Cool, so we're going to actually get into Redux and see how to use it and stuff, so that's so exciting. Max always goes into all the detail in his courses, man, you just learn everything. He'll show you bad ways to do things, he'll show you good ways to do things so you can avoid the bad ways, or not even bad ways, but different options, and then recommend the most ideal solution and tell you why it's the most ideal solution in that particular case, and tell you how the other solution might be beneficial in another case. So highly recommend Maximilian Schwarzmuller. He taught me Angular from the ground up. That's the man who's responsible for me having a job in coding. Seriously, he is. So love Max, absolutely love Max. And I love all you guys, so thanks. If anyone's watching me, I love it. Thanks. Cool, so we have a reducer function. With Redux, we use a reducer. It's not the useREDUCER hook that we see in React. Reducers are just a general coding concept. So they take one input and spit out another output. Cool. So components never directly manipulate the stored data in Redux. We have a subscription that allows this change to happen. And we use the reducers in order to manipulate the data in the central store. That mutates the stored data. So reducers take in some input, transform the input and give out a different output. So for example, they can reduce the list of numbers to the sum. So you could take in an array of numbers and return what the total is. That's reducing all of these 5 numbers. For example, if you passed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it would reduce it and add all those together, which gives you whatever that gives you. Math skills. Just on the like on the spot there, I was like, damn. And then we have components that subscribe to the data. Yeah, and we trigger it somehow. So like with the click of a button or with some action. With some action. With the action, we forward the action to the reducer. The reducer performs this function, and then we get back some new data that we can update the store with. Yeah, so that's just a bit of theory about it, but we're going to see how this actually looks in a code setting now in a moment. So we're going to start a brand new project. It's not even I feel like I did this before. Are these lessons ticked? Yeah, these lessons are ticked. So I've already done this in a previous day. I'll find the day and I'll put it in the description box down below, because like there's no point in just doing it again. We did have a look at Max's bare bones Redux project. It was great actually using it. Do you know what? Maybe I will just do it again, because it made loads of sense when I did it with the bare bones project that he used. It made a lot of sense, and then once we started to use it in the larger project, I got a bit confused when we were using it in a React project. But like, is that valuable? Okay guys, so yeah, we have had a look at this Redux section before, so I'm just going to go to the bit where we are yet to pick up from. So this is chapter 19, and I'll also link where we did the rest of the Redux in the description box down below, so you can go and check out those days where we started off with the more simplified Redux, or just basically we had a look at a very simple project and we implemented Redux into this simple project. It wasn't even a React project. Excuse me, we were just looking at how Redux actually operates. So I'll link them down below. And then we started to use it in a React project. So that's where we're going to jump ahead to and use it in the React project, because we've already done the first part on a previous day, which will be linked down below. So thanks. And let's continue. So we are in chapter 19 here. So we're going to get a new piece of code set up here. So let me just get that ready. Let me get it ready, baby. Chapter 19, here we go. And open with code. Bada bing, bada boom. Perfect. So, nice. Here we go. And I'll just close the other project. And this is telling me, from looking at the completed code, that, well, we're going to go refresher practice part 1. So let's just start from the beginning of this chapter. We haven't got too far into it because we're starting off with a refresher, and that might not be a bad idea, seeing as we are skipping the beginning. Well, we've just already done it. We're not skipping anything. Cool, so here we are. Perfect, so let's get this running. So I'll go cd code 01 cd code, I didn't hit tab, 01 tab. Then we will do npm install to make sure that all the packages are installed in here. That should be npm install. Excuse me. And we'll just let that install there, and then I'll spin it up. So that's what we'll do. And you know what I'll do in the meantime? I'll go back and listen to the explanation that Max was just giving, because why not? I might get some valuable information for you guys. So we're going to have a look at how we can handle async tasks with Redux, asynchronous code. Where we should put our code, and also look at the Redux dev tools. So we'll do all that. I'll do npm. I'll just show you what I'm doing here as well. So that's the wrong window. So here I'm just typing npm audit fix. Perfect. So yes, any reducer function takes in an old state and an action and outputs a new state. So that's what the reducer is also doing within Redux. It's just general reducer concepts. That's what happens. Reducers must be pure, side effect free, synchronous functions. And we'll just run npm start here to get the project fired up. Cool. Cool, so we're just waiting for that to fire up, but in the meantime we can have a look at our code here. So perfect. Look, this is the starting project that we are going to be working with. So we have a Redux cart here and various buttons, but the buttons do not yet work. So we're going to hook these up. That's what we're going to do. So if I just reload, we'll be hooking up all these buttons. So cool. So yeah, currently we don't have an add item to cart function that we can run, or a handler that we can run when we actually click that button. So we're going to hook all that up. Okay. Okay, cool. So the first thing we need to do if we want to use Redux within a React project, this is a React project here, is we need to stop our terminal running and install Redux. So we'll just say npm. npm is a package manager that we've been using. So we'll say npm install. So I should really leave this up here, or else just make me smaller, shouldn't I? So you can always see my terminal. That's very important. So let's do that. I want you guys to be able to see everything that I'm doing. So now you can see it. That's a bit of a better solution. So there we go. Okay, so I'm just going to do npm install, and we're going to install at Redux JS toolkit /toolkit. Perfect. Cool. And we'll let that install. And we also need to install React Redux, so I could have and should have just installed those together perhaps, but we won't worry about that at the moment. Okay, so now we have our terminal back here, so we'll do npm install react / redux. So we're installing the packages we need in order to use Redux within our React project here. And then now within our source project here, source file, and which contains like all of the files of our project, we can add a new folder and call this store, which is just general terminology for where you want to store the state of your application. So we'll follow that general naming convention and call this folder store, because we're going to store the state of our project in here. And we're also being told here to run npm audifix. I mean, you can and you can't. It might still work without it, but it's recommending that we do run it, so we will do that. Audifix, perfect. Or you do or don't have to is what I was going to say. It might still spin up without actually doing the npm audifix, but it's telling you here to run it. So we'll just run it, but then other times I don't bother because I have a feeling it's going to spin up, and I'm just doing all this for practice. So I'm not actually building something where I really care if there's a few packages that aren't going to work, and then if I face problems I can always do it then. So that's sort of my approach with just these general messing around, having a go projects. Although if you're learning, just, you know, follow it, do what is recommended. That's only because I've been doing it a little longer, and for the sake of the videos I want to just get on with the coding. So npm install and the waffling, we all know how important the waffling is. So npm install, I meant to do npm start, so I'll just cancel that. I've literally just done npm install. Right, we'll let it do, terminate. Npm start. So in order to terminate it, you just use ctrl and C, or that will also bring you down to a new line on your terminal, and then you can just press up to get the last command, hit enter to run npm. That's not the command I want to run again. So we'll do npm start. Sorry guys, so that's what I want to do. Cool. Cool, so now we'll make two different files in here. We'll have our UI slice and our cart slice. Okay guys, so within this folder here now we're going to create two components. So we will create a new file, two new components. So we have our cart slice.js, and we're going to create another file here called our new file, and we'll call this UI slice.js. So we did look at this previously, but just to rejig the memory and make sure that we're on the right track, I'm going to just quickly spin them up again. So in our UI slice here, we want to import create slice, and this is coming in from Redux. So from @Redux toolkit, perfect. And then we'll also add our create slice here, and this will be name UI. We also want an initial state, and our initial state is going to be cart is visible, which is just a boolean. Cart is visible false, we'll set it to false initially. And then reducers, so our reducers that we also want to add, which is going to be an object. And we'll just add one method for the time being, and this method will be toggle. So we'll be toggling an action on and off. So all we want to do is say toggle the state And what we want to do when we call this toggle is state.cart is visible is equal to the opposite of state cart is visible. So we're just toggling, switching between true and false there when we call this toggle. Cool. Okay, so in here in this UI slice, we're just going to add a few more bits. So we will export constant UI actions. So we're just calling them UI actions here, and this is going to be equal to our UI slice. And we want to export default UI slice. So yeah, when we are actually getting the UI actions, we want to access the UI slice dot actions, and then this is what we're going to export as our default, the actual actions. So then we're also going to create in our store another index file. So new file, index.js. Cool. And what we want to do in here is configure the store. So we will import configure store, from Redux.js toolkit. We will import our UI slice. Yes, from UI slice. Then we will create our store. So we'll just say constant store is equal to configure store. We're configuring our store here, configure store, and we will pass this an object, and these are going to be our reducers. And this is the reducers we have as our UI, which is our UI slice.reducer. And then we will export this. So export default store. Cool. And now that we have our store set up and we're configuring it and we have our store defined and everything, we just need to provide it to the application so we can actually use it. So in our root application, in our index.js here, we will provide it. So it's already provided here, provider store. Okay, so I must have had some of this done, but that's all we were going to come in and do, was provide our store, and our store is coming from our index. Yeah. So cool, we've already done that somehow, but because we did start this earlier, so that's fine, that this is actually what we want. All we're doing is providing the store from that store, from our components store index, which is exactly where we need that to be. So funny that those files weren't there, but hey ho, let's go. So now we can use Redux because we are providing it to the application. So in our main header, in our cart. Cool, so we've left off exactly where we were. We still have all these functions hooked up, so this is grand actually. So I'll just explain as we go, because we did start this earlier, yeah. So yeah, we're importing our UI actions and we want to import them as a named import. So I'll add these into an object notation. And then we want to use dispatch and use selector, yes, so we can dispatch these actions like the toggle. So here we are dispatching the UI actions toggle, which is just using that toggle function from our UI actions. Yeah, so what this is doing when we toggle it, it's turning on and off the visibility of the cart, as we've seen, because that's what we set it up to do in our UI slice. So here we have state cart is visible, and we're toggling it to state cart is not visible. So we need to actually use this now in our cart. So here in our cart, we can see we are using it. We have the show cart boolean that we've set up, and this is using the selector from the state, which is the cart is visible selector. So perfect, we have already hooked this up. So what I think I'll actually do is just link the videos that I've done all the Redux like started this project with down below, so you can watch like how I got to where I am here now, you know. And then maybe I'll just like skip ahead to where I was. So I might actually just pause this video now, or like stop today's video, watch the rest of Max's videos, because there's only like 3 or 4 of them, but it's not going to be very interesting to just sit here and watch me watching 4 videos of Max's. And just make sure that, you know, I followed the same rigmarole, that nothing was missed, that I understand what's happening, and then pick back up where we actually left off. So where the video from the previous day that we did this work and set up, have this code going in here, was actually done for the first time around, because I don't want to confuse things by doing the same things twice, because when I first started to look at it, it was confusing me a little bit. So we'll just do that. I'll link the video, where the videos that we had previously done to get to this point, in the description box down below, and I'll pick up exactly where I left off in the last video, where we did stop doing the useREDUCER, and then probably something came up in work and I wanted to catch up on a different topic. So Kubernetes was in there, Kubernetes with Nana. So I think probably that's what happened. A work requirement came up to learn something new, and I thought, you know what, I'll hop on this with my 100 days of code challenge, because what else am I going to be learning? Only things that are going to be valuable for myself and for my job. So I think that was sort of the logic there. So thank you so much, guys, for joining me, Lily Code, on another video, another episode of 100 Days of Code. Appreciate it so much. Love you all. Have an absolutely fabulous day. And yeah, I just hope you really enjoy yourself as always. So loads of love, sending hugs. Thanks so much for joining me, and enjoy. Thanks.